Today we have a story about a man trying to join the Royal Air Force as a flying instructor and being discriminated against. Why? Because he's a white dude. Guys, welcome back to Fast Performance Then. My name is Tim Davies and this story is appalling. I wish this man all the most success that he can get out of this flying instructor, who was rejected by the RAF, sues the Ministry of Defence for race discrimination over claims recruitment policy gave priority to female and minority recruits over white men. Now, the Royal Air Force has admitted that it did this. If you remember correctly, on my YouTube channel, I've done so many films on this, guys. You can scroll down here. Look, we'll just jump straight into them. I've done diversity there, another diversity one there. Diversity, grift, air traffic control, force diversity, Navy boss, questions diversity, no white men, RAF guilty. I've done so many films on this. I've been on TV talking about this, been on the radio as well. And it all stems because of this woman, Maria Byford, left the service July 2023. She was the woman in charge of Royal Air Force recruitment, and she decided that she was going to discriminate against white men in favour of women and ethnic minorities because her boss, Mike Wigston, who we'll have a look at in a minute, who was the chief of air staff, so the boss of the Royal Air Force, decided that he wanted the Royal Air Force to be 40% women and 20% ethnic minorities by 2030. I know it's a crazy thing to say. These are crazy people. That actually happened. Genuinely, in real life, that happened. We are unashamed about doing that because I think that's a good thing. Let's have a look at this dude. So the flying instructor then is suing the Ministry of Defence for race discrimination over an RAF policy that gave priority to female and ethnic minority recruits. A guy called Matthew Coverley then had 2 applications to join the Royal Air Force rejected for what he claims were disingenuous reasons, and employment tribunal was told. Now, he's actually got a very, very valid point here. I can't see how this guy is going to lose. The Royal Air Force has admitted that it did actually discriminate against about 176 pilots on entry, all white, of course, and it actually paid them all about £5,000 after it put women and minorities into the Air Force ahead of those white men purely because of their gender, I'm going to call it sex, and their skin colour. That's called racism. That's called sexism. And the Royal Air Force actually did that in about 2020, I think it was. An experienced military pilot initially thought the decision to reject him was strange, but started to suspect he had been discriminated against when news broke of the RAF's controversial recruitment policy. Yeah, I'd probably do that myself, actually. I was probably the guy that broke that, as you can see, Sky News, everything else, because fundamentally it was wrong. A woman lost her job over this. She actually put her hand up. A woman called Elizabeth Nicole, red blood in her soul, a true British patriot, and said, fundamentally, this is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. She was involved in HR, human resources and recruitment. Now, Matt Coverley then served in the British Army for about 22 years. What an absolute mad lad, right? A warrant officer. So this guy was enough qualified. He had incredible skills as a qualified flying instructor. He'd come through Central Flying School, which I did as well. And of course, he just wanted to join the Royal Air Force and carry on instructing. He was already working for a company called Ascent Flight Training. That's a civilian company that works alongside the military to bring flying training to the students that are coming through. He said he had positive conversations about his application. Basically, documents seen at a hearing suggested he had been placed in a pool of potential recruits as of July 2020. This is when the whole discrimination thing was at its peak. And this guy here is Mike Wigston, and Mike Wigston was instrumental, unfortunately. I like Mike Wigston, I've always said that, in making sure that he was prioritising women and minorities over white men. Truly disgraceful. No excuse for it whatsoever. And unfortunately, him and Maria Byford, well, fortunately, they're both not in the service anymore. However, Matt Coverley then, in November 2020, he was removed, his application removed from the pool and rejected on the grounds that he lacked the necessary training. He claims this was untrue. And it's an odd thing, really, because he was actually flying with Ascent Flight Training at the same time. So how would he lack the necessary training to go into the Royal Air Force when he's actually doing the job already with a civilian company? And the tribunal heard then, back in August 2022, that the RS head of recruitment group captain Lizzie Nicole, who I've just mentioned, resigned in protest at the recruitment policy to give priority to female and ethnic minority recruits over white men. I know. I can't believe it's happened either. I even spoke to some guys in the Air Force recently and they said, Tim, we didn't believe it either. And then we spoke to our boys who spoke to the guys, in recruitment, and they said, yeah, that actually happened. The whole RAF could not believe that this had happened. People serving in the Royal Air Force and said, you've done what? You've literally done what? You've discriminated against white men. What were you thinking? How on earth have you tarnished the reputation of the military? Incredible. Then it says here that he basically saw that the RAF had targets. He started doing some research himself, as any one of us would, right? And in July 2023, he put a complaint in and said, hang on a second, was I discriminated against as well? It must feel really bad for him to have to go through this. I do sympathise with him. Now, there's an employment judge, Samantha Moore, who pointed out the most recent of Mr. Coverley's rejections came in 2022, making it 9 months, like outside the time apparently he could actually complain. She said in this case, the reason for delay relied on Mr. Coverley by Mr. Coverley is that he did not know about the MOD's discrimination policy until June 2023. Let's not get technical. He'd been rejected from his applications about 2 years apart, 2020 and 2022. Okay, and she's saying, well, they probably were tainted with discrimination in that time. Now, the MOD, who do not play fair in any of this stuff, are genuinely... I want you to understand that when the MOD comes up against something like this, they will be sneaky as a tiger and doing everything they possibly can to win that case at the expense of the other person. And they honestly, I'm not even joking, guys, when I say this, I can give you examples of people who have died. And I'm not going to do it on this now, whose family have received nothing from the Ministry of Defence going against them, going against that person's family who have died. I'm not even going to go into it. I've got books on my shelf here. And if you want to know about it, go and read books by David Hill. Remember that name, David Hill, Amazon, David Hill. Go and read about Red 5, go and read some other books like that, and you will I'm not even saying that was the case. I'm just saying, go and read up about the Ministry of Defence, Mulligan Tyre. You know how it works, guys. You know how it works. So the MD's case saying he must have been aware of it. He must have been aware that I love this. He must have been aware that the Air Force were discriminating. So, why didn't he bring it up sooner? And basically the MOD saying, well, he must have had some knowledge of the discrimination policy, so he should have basically complained before. It's a ludicrous thing. Ludicrous, guys. I'm not even going either way. Basically what it's saying is that he does have a case to be heard. It's going to go to a full hearing, and I wish this guy the best of luck. The fact that this chap with his legendary beard actually has to take this to our tribunal just shows how disgusting the policy of discrimination by not just the Royal Air Force, by the Navy, the Army, the healthcare is still going on, of course, we know that, education, or police as well. There was a case in Cheshire where this happened as well, wasn't it? How on earth have we allowed this to happen? We need to tear that civil service apart. We need to get Dom Cummings in there is what we need to do. And we need to kick this into touch with British. We're British. This shouldn't happen. We're British, right? This should not happen. We should not be prioritising anyone. We should not be discriminating against anyone. Guys, I'm about to go into a massive rant, innit? Look, I love you lots. Really appreciate your time, of course. Tim Davies, Fast Jet Performance.